Founder of one of the world's major religions, Buddha was born Prince Siddhartha in northeast India, near the borders of Nepal. Seeing the unhappiness, sickness, and death that even the most powerful and wealthiest are subject to in this life, at age 29, he abandoned the life he was living in search of a higher truth. The name Buddha is actually a title that translates to the Awakened One, or the Enlightened One. This is the title given to Siddhartha Gautama, who left behind the princely life at the age of 29 and went on a lifelong search for religious understanding and a way of release from the human condition. It is said that he discarded the teachings of his contemporaries, and through meditation he achieved enlightenment or ultimate understanding. From then on, he assumed the role of teacher, instructing his followers in the Dharma, or truth. His teachings became the basis for the religious practice of Buddhism, which has played a major role in the spiritual, cultural, and social life of the Eastern world, and much of the Western world as well. I have deliberately chosen not to speak on the tenets of Buddhist doctrine, but rather to take this often quoted passage of the Buddha and relate its significance to you and me today, some 25 centuries after the death of the Enlightened One. He said it like this: "Do not believe what you have heard. Do not believe in tradition because it is handed down many generations. Do not believe in anything that has been spoken of many times. Do not believe because the written statements come from some old sage. Do not believe in conjecture. Do not believe in authority or teachers or elders. But, after careful observation and analysis, when it agrees with reason, and it will benefit one and all, then accept it and live by it." The key word in the passage is believe. In fact, the key phrase is, do not believe. Everything that you carry around with you that you call a belief has become your own largely because of the experiences and testimonies of other people. And if it comes to you from a source outside of yourself, regardless of how persuasive the conditioning process might be, and irrespective of how many people just like you have worked to convince you of the truth of these beliefs, the fact that it is someone else's truth means that you receive it with some question marks or doubts. If I were to attempt to convince you about the taste of a delectable fish, say, you would perhaps listen but still have your doubts. Were I to show you pictures of this fish, and furthermore have hundreds of people come to testify about the veracity of my statements, you might become even more convinced. But that modicum of doubt would still remain because you hadn't tasted it yet. You might accept the truth of its deliciousness for me, but until your taste buds experience the fish, your truth is only a belief based upon my truth, or my experience. And so it is also with all of the well-meaning members of your tribes and their tribal ancestors before them. Just because you've heard it, and it is a long surviving tradition, and it is recorded over the centuries, and the world's greatest teachers have endorsed it, is still not a reason to accept a belief. Remember, do not believe it as Buddha instructs. Rather than using the term belief, try shifting to the word knowing. When you have the direct experience of tasting the fish, you now have a knowing. That is, you have made conscious contact and can determine your truth based upon your own experience. You know how to swim or how to ride a bicycle, not because you have a belief about it, but because you have had the direct experience. You are being reminded directly by the Enlightened One of 2,500 years ago to apply this same understanding to your spiritual practices. There is a fundamental difference between knowing something and knowing about something. Knowing about something is another term for belief. Knowing is a term reserved exclusively for direct experience. The Buddha offers you some great advice, and you can see that his conclusion is devoid of the word believe. He says, when it agrees with reason, that is, when you know it to be true based on your own observation and experience, and it is beneficial to one and all, then and only then, live by it. Throughout this recording, I offer you a summation of some of the most famous and creative genius minds of all times. I encourage you to do the same thing with all of the words that have come to you from beyond this contemporary world as with the words that have been handed down many generations. First and foremost, try the advice in this recording. Ask yourself how it equates with your own reason and common sense. And if it benefits you and others, then live by it. That is, make it your knowing. My research reveals a fairly common definition of intention as a strong purpose or aim, accompanied by a determination to produce a desired result. People driven by intention are described as having a strong will that won't permit anything to interfere with achieving their inner desire. I imagine a sort of pit bull kind of resolve or determination. If you're one of those people with a never-give-up attitude combined with an internal picture that propels you toward fulfilling your dreams, you fit this description of someone with intention. You are, most likely, a superachiever and probably proud of your ability to recognize and take advantage of opportunities that arise. For many years, I've held a similar belief about intention. In fact, I've written and spoken often about the power of intention being just what I've described above. Over the past quarter of a century, however, I've felt a shift in my thinking from a purely psychological or personal growth emphasis toward a spiritual orientation where healing, creating miracles, manifesting, and making a connection to divine intelligence are genuine possibilities. This hasn't been a deliberate attempt to disengage from my academic and professional background, but rather a natural evolution that's been unfolding as I began to make more conscious contact with spirit. My writing now emphasizes my belief that we can find spiritual solutions to problems by living at higher levels and calling upon faster energies. In my mind, intention is now something much greater than a determined ego or individual will. It's something almost totally opposite. Perhaps this comes from shedding many levels of ego in my own life, but I also feel the strong influence of two sentences I read in a book by Carlos Castaneda. Castaneda's words were, quote, "Intent is a force that exists in the universe. When sorcerers, that is, those who live of the source, beckon intent, it comes to them and sets up a path for attainment, which means that sorcerers always accomplish what they set out to do." Unquote. When I read those two sentences, I was stunned by the insight and clarity it gave me about the power of intention. Imagine that intention is not something you do, but rather a force that exists in the universe as an invisible field of energy. I had never even considered intention in this way before reading Castaneda's words. I wrote those two sentences down, and then I had them printed on a card and laminated. I carried the laminated card with me into the catheter lab for my minor surgical procedure, and as soon as I could, I began talking about the power of intention to anyone who would listen. I made intention a part of every speech I gave. I immersed myself in this idea to use it, not only for my own healing, but to help others use the power of intention to carry them where they're fully equipped to go. I had experienced what is called satori, or instant awakening, and was intent on offering this insight to others. It had become clear to me that accessing the power of intention relieved so much of the seemingly impossible work of striving to fulfill desires by sheer force of will. Since that defining moment, I've thought of the power of intention in virtually all of my waking hours, and books, articles, conversations, telephone calls, items arriving in my mailbox, and arbitrary works I might be looking at in a bookstore all seem to conspire to keep me on this path. I know that intention is a force that we all have within us. Intention is a field of energy that flows invisibly beyond the reach of our normal, everyday, habitual patterns. It's there even before our actual conception. We have the means to attract this energy to us and experience life in an exciting new way. The meaning of omnipresent intention. Try imagining a force that's everywhere. There's no place that you can go where it isn't. It can't be divided and is present in everything you see or touch. Now extend your awareness of this infinite field of energy beyond the world of form and boundaries. This infinite and visible force is everywhere, so it's in both the physical and the non-physical. Your physical body is one part of your totality emanating from this energy. At the instant of conception, intention sets in motion how your physical form will appear and how your growing and aging process will unfold. It also sets in motion your non-physical aspects, including your emotions, thoughts, and disposition. In this instance, intention is infinite potential, activating your physical and non-physical appearance on Earth. You formed out of this omnipresent to become present in time and space. Because it's omnipresent, this energy field of intent is accessible to you after your physical arrival here on Earth. The only way you deactivate this dormant force is by believing that you're separate from it. Activating intention means rejoining your source and becoming a modern-day sorcerer. Being a sorcerer means attaining the level of awareness where previously inconceivable things are available. As Carlos Castaneda explained, the task of sorcerers was to face infinity, or intention, and they plunged into it daily as a fisherman plunges into the sea. Intention is a power that's present everywhere as a field of energy. It isn't limited to physical development. It's the source of non-physical development as well. This field of intention is here, now, and available to you. When you activate it, you begin to feel purpose in your life, and you'll be guided by your infinite self. As you make your metaphorical bow to this power, recognize that you're bowing to yourself. The all-pervading energy of intention pulses through you toward your potential for a purposeful life. Here are a few of the conditioned thoughts that keep your ego in charge of your life and prevent you from materializing what you desire and what desires you. The first is called, I am not in charge of my life. That force is outside me. You can change this perception. Turn your attention away from the ego-dominated thoughts about the circumstances of your life to the present moment. By consciously noticing your breath, the sounds, textures, smells, and scenes that the life force is experiencing through you. A second conditioned thought says, people cannot manifest. It is all a function of the cosmic throw of the dice. It's all just luck. Well, blaming luck or some external invisible force that controls the universe is a habit of conditioning that leads to disempowerment and ultimately to defeat. You are the universe. It is not something outside you. You are that force which is in everything, even the things that have previously failed to show up in your life. Remember, as you think, so shall you be. If you think you can't, you're right, and that is precisely what you will see showing up in your life. A third conditioned response, or thought. I have tried before and it's never worked for me. Here the conditioned response is believing that once having tried and failed, further efforts will yield the same results. Let go of your obsession with the past and with trying, and instead remain relaxed and casual in the moment. Your past is an illusion. It is the trail that is left behind you, and a trail behind you cannot drive you today, regardless of what you choose to believe. All you have is now, and you have never tried anything. A fourth conditioned thought. Only highly evolved beings can manifest. Here again, this is the ego saying that you are separate and distinct from your spiritual teachers and others who live at the highest levels. Relinquish those thoughts and replace them with seeing yourself as connected to everyone by that unseen life force that is your divine essence. Think of this definition of enlightenment: to be immersed in and surrounded by peace. Your highest self only wants you to be at peace. It does not judge, it doesn't compare or demand that you defeat anyone or be better than anyone. You know your highest self by listening to the voice that only wants you to be at peace. That's what enlightenment is. The purpose of the highest self is to assist you in this effort. You do this by creating an inner sanctuary that is yours and yours alone. Go to this silent inner retreat as often as you can and let go of all attachments to the external world of the ego. As you go to this sanctuary, a light will be born within you that you will come to know and respect. This light is your connection to the energy of manifestation. Here are a few suggestions to nurture trust in yourself and in that oneness. The first is called, begin by admitting your confusion or failures. When you're honest with yourself about every aspect of your life, you discontinue identifying with separateness. You then become ready for the insight that trust in yourself and trust in ultimate truth are one and the same. A second suggestion is to keep in mind that you cannot go to a higher ground if you're hanging on to a lower level. You cannot leave the physical world if you're so attached to it that you refuse to let go. The concept of trust involves surrendering to and trusting the God force. The third suggestion is to acquire a rebellious attitude toward the philosophy that preaches a style of God as boss, who is authoritarian and a benevolent tyrant. Rejection of this model does not mean that you are an atheist, but rather a believer in the true meaning of divinity. A fourth suggestion is to remember that trusting does not mean you never experience life's valleys. There will be peaks and valleys as long as you live in this physical plane. Do not abandon trust when your ego thinks things should be different than they are. It is better to embrace trust when darkness is present, knowing that light will follow. Begin to look for the lesson in the darkness, rather than cursing it. And a fifth suggestion is to take your serious problems and turn them over to God. Say something like the following: I've not been able to resolve these issues in my life. I would like to show my trust in the divine force by simply turning them over to your divine hands, which I know are also mine, and I trust that this action will lead to a resolution of these problems. A sixth suggestion is to remember that the presence of complete trust is evident in your life when what you think and feel and do are all balanced and in harmony. To say, I believe in a healthy body, and to practice eating in unhealthy ways dissolves trust in yourself. When you are incongruent with your thoughts, you are showing a lack of trust in the divinity that is your essence. And finally, a seventh suggestion: begin a meditation practice of contemplating the supreme principle that is beyond the pettiness of this world. Meditation is not merely making the mind think that it is meditating. Meditation is literally the embodiment of truth and trust. It is knowing that I can confront myself in a spirit of serenity, and that what I seek will be attracted to me. This, then, is the energy of manifesting, and it comes most frequently when the mind is quiet. It is the quiet mind that comes in contact with the truth. This process of closing my eyes and becoming serene gives me the ability to tap into that source of inspiration. Inspiration. The very word comes from in spirit. William James once wrote, "There is a law in psychology that if you form a picture in your mind of what you would like to be, and you keep and hold that picture there long enough, you will soon become exactly as you have been thinking." William James, an American philosopher, psychologist, and teacher, was a gifted writer in the fields of theology, psychology, ethics, and metaphysics. William is considered by many to be the father of modern psychology. In this one brief statement, he offers a powerful tool for all of us to use each and every day of our lives. This process of forming a picture in our mind is often referred to as visualization, and is based on the biblical idea, "As ye think, so shall ye be." This goes well beyond the idea of positive thinking. If you want to see your life work at an entirely new level, I encourage you to discover how this law works for you personally. We think in pictures, just as we dream in pictures. Not words, sentences, or phrases, but mental images. The words are symbols enabling us to communicate or describe those pictures. It is this picturing process that William James is saying that you control with your free will. If you can learn to hold those pictures long enough without allowing anyone to weaken them, you will actually convert those pictures into your reality. You will become a co-creator of your very existence and all that shows up in your life. I have written an entire book and produced a recording based on the principles involved in this process called Manifest Your Destiny, and I choose not to repeat those 9 principles here. What I will do is offer you what I think of as the 4 R's for putting this idea to work beginning today. Here are the 4 R's in one sentence. What you really, 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 really want, you will get. The first R stands for what you really wish. Here is where you form a picture of what you would like in your life, such as a promotion, a new car, weight loss, non-addiction, or whatever. Once the picture is formed, you wish for it by seeing yourself in the job or driving the new car or at your desired weight or non-addicted. Everything you manifest begins with a wish based upon an inner visualization. The second R stands for what you really desire. The difference between merely having a picture in your mind that you wish for and a desire is in your willingness to ask for it. Ask and you shall receive is not an empty promise. Whatever it is that you have wished for in your imagery, ask out loud but privately to receive. God, I am asking for your cooperation in bringing this picture to me in a material way. The third R stands for what you really intend. Now you take the picture which you have wished for and asked for, and you frame it into a statement of intention or will. It goes like this. I intend to bring this picture into my world with the cooperation of whatever you prefer to name as the creative intelligence. There's no room here for doubt with such statements as, if everything works out okay, or if I am lucky. A statement of intention is based on the law that William James stated for you at the beginning of this passage. The fourth R stands for what you feel really passionate about, or what I call the hardening of the will. You are unwilling to allow anyone to discourage your passionate purpose or put a damper on your picture. You resist the negative opinion of others, and you remain silent as much as possible on what it is that you intend to produce into your life. This passion is what William James meant by, and you keep and hold that picture there long enough. Those who are really, 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 really accomplished at attracting into their lives all that they desire are by no means lucky, nor do their circumstances create their desires. They have all 4 R's working for them at all times, and particularly the 4th R, which is really passionate. Virtually everything in my life, including all of my books and tapes, are the result of applying this law in psychology. It all begins with a wish. This recording, along with the book, began with a wish that I could write a book and produce a recording that interpreted the great wisdom of the people I've so admired all of my life and what they offer all of us today, even though they've all left our planet. I then expressed this desire to my wife and my agent along with my editor at the same time as I asked for the ability and the cooperation of the universe in bringing it all about. This was followed by an intention to create such a book and record it, which I relayed to the various people and departments involved in the publishing process. Some liked it. Some were a bit skeptical, telling me all the reasons why poetry analysis were not popular, and some discouraged me. I had my picture of the book, and I loved the idea of bringing these great masters to my readers and to those who listen to my tapes. Finally, my passion took over, and it was impossible for me to ignore my picture. As William James said, you will soon become exactly as you have been thinking. And here it is. You're listening to it right now. The key to this is putting all 4 R's to work and really using them. What is it that you weren't willing to do to make it happen, is my response to the question I frequently hear as to why something didn't materialize as pictured. When the passion is there, and you refuse to allow any interference from any external source, there is nothing that will stop you. According to William James, it's the law. English philosophical poet Percy Bysshe Shelley rejected all conventions that he believed stifled love and human freedom and rebelled against the strictures of English politics and religion. Percy Bysshe Shelley's poetry was his legacy to all of us on the importance of passionately living our lives every day. Living life passionately has its own tremendous rewards, which are intensified when one is aware that death, in its arbitrary way, can come at any unexpected moment, as it did for Shelley. This man was a fervent idealist who wrote of his love for love and his passion for passion. He completed his enormous treasury of poetry and prose by the age of 29, when he died in a boating accident during a storm. Not only does his poetry speak to all of us of his enormous passion, but so does his life as well. He took up causes, risked his fame and his life, and drank up every moment of his life. The poem quoted here, titled Love's Philosophy, conveys a glimmer of the passion that Shelley felt in his idealistic heart. The fountains mingle with the river, and the rivers with the ocean. The winds of heaven mix forever with a sweet emotion. Nothing in the world is single, all things by a law divine, in one spirit meet and mingle. Why not I with thine? See the mountains kiss high heaven, and the waves clasp one another. No sister flower would be forgiven if it disdained its brother. And the sunlight clasps the earth, and the moonbeams kiss the sea. What is all this sweet work worth, if thou kiss not me? This poem says to me, as does so much of his romantic poetry, feel the love for those you adore and express it with fervor, otherwise live your life in frustration. Love, the passionate variety, is that inner sense of longing that pervades every thought, every waking moment. It is a state of bliss that we usually equate with sexual or romantic feelings when they are ecstatically shared with our lover. All of that mingling and mixing and clasping and kissing between the rivers, winds, mountains, flowers, and moonbeams are Shelley's metaphors for that shared state of bliss. Why, he implies, would you choose the frustration of not expressing those feelings? I can recall the aching I have felt at various times in my own life for a love that I was unable to share with someone. I think I felt as though I'd died and gone to heaven when that love was made manifest by long embraces and kisses and union. But there is also passion in other circumstances, like the ecstasy of creation. When we consider the matter of having passion in our lives, it is important to pay attention to the things that we feel passionate about. Shelley speaks of a love and a joyful heart that is able to appreciate the beauty of our world and all of those we feel connected to. His is not exclusively a passion that keeps us enslaved to our sexual ecstasies. What he is describing is living your life not as if today were the first day of the rest of your life, but as if this were the only day of your life, which of course it is. And sharing your passion because a shared joy is a way of doubling one's joy. Too often we find ourselves bogged down in a serious approach to life, using our minds to keep us in a state of angst, or even worse, indifference. Joy and ecstasy come from within. They cannot be purchased at any price. We are all seeking joy and happiness, and often feeling it is not a proper state of mind when it arrives. The key to knowing this state is to put passion into your life, but also your recreation, your vocation, and in all of your observations of yourself intermingling with this glorious universe. There is so much to be passionate about. I have found that people who have a passion or a strong will for what they want to achieve, and who do not allow others to smear or sully their inner pictures of what they want to manifest, always seem to get what it is they are desiring in their lives. Shelley lived out of his passionate idealism with every breath and heartbeat. His passion is reflected in his magnificent poetry. To put this passion to work into your own life, first, know that you are a part of a joyful universe. Allow your romantic, ecstatic, joyful emotions to appear more frequently in your daily life. When you feel joy, experience it and then express it. As it says in the New Testament, joy is the fruit of the Spirit. Don't deny yourself that fruit. Secondly, write your own poetry. Take the time to record your feelings of passion. Whether your passion is pottery or antique furniture, mathematics or music, express it in your own words. Third, give yourself permission to be a passionate person. Be passionate about anything or anyone you choose without interference from your inner critic. When that inner critic tries to make you feel foolish, gently but firmly tell it to wait for you in the lobby and invite it to rejoin you later if you want it. And fourth, tell those you love how you feel about them as often as possible. This will give you the opportunity to share your joy, and by doing so, doubling it.
A motivated person is generally thought of as someone who has goals and who has objectives and is trying to get someplace else and has sort of an inner vision of where they would like to be, and they work hard and they get up early and they leave a little bit late and they have all kinds of good work habits and so on, and they're said to be highly motivated. And that's not inspiration. That's motivation is you get a hold of an idea and you take it with you and you carry it through to its logical conclusion. That's a motivated person. Inspiration is not where you get a hold of an idea and take it where you want it to go. It's where an idea gets a hold of you, and it takes you where you were intended to go in the first place. You know you remember Arthur Miller? He died about a year ago, the great playwright. You know, most of us had to read The Death of a Salesman or The Crucible. Well, he was 88 years old, and he was interviewed in the New York Times, and they asked him a question. Now, he had a play on Broadway at 88, and they asked him a question. They said, "Are you working on another play?" And here was this man who was soon to be 90, who said, "I don't know." He said, "But I probably am." And I think it was one of the great inspirational moments in my life reading that, and it was really one of the things that motivated me to write a book about inspiration from this perspective, that there are things that get a hold of you. Now, Mozart was described this way, that he would have what he called lively dreams, and he said that these symphonies would present themselves to him. And it was almost as if they were already written, and he would have to get them out and record them, and so on. Now, you probably have experienced this. Most creative people who've done a lot of particularly creative work understand this. Rumi, the great Persian poet, said, he said, "The morning breeze has secrets to tell you. Do not go back to sleep. Do not go back to sleep." And what he was saying there was that when you are closest to God, between 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, which is the best time for almost all of us, and almost everyone listening will awaken at one time or another between the hours of 3 and 4 and then go right back to sleep. But if you could understand that that's a wake-up call for you to be able to do what it is that you were designated to do, what you signed up to do, what your spirit is telling you to do, because inspiration is just about being in spirit. And when I get up when I'm writing, I get up between 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, and I go out. I live on Maui, and I go out onto my writing space out there. And thank you, by the way, all of you, for my place on Maui. I really appreciate it. It's a wonderful place, and I appreciate you getting it for me. I mean that. I say that sort of, but I mean I'm always in a state of gratitude for all of the people who have supported the work that I have done. And at any rate, so I go out there and I sit down, and there are times, I don't know if you've had this experience, Mark, but I sit down and I write everything by hand, everything, and I just allow it to flow through me. I allow it to flow through. I take a purple pen, which is the highest energy of the rainbow, and I allow it to come through me. And there are times when I sit there at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I allow this information to come through my heart and onto the page, and I sit there and I wonder what's coming next. And oftentimes I'll read it, I'll think, I didn't even know I knew that. And then if I get stuck on something, or if I'm just not quite sure about something, I'll just reach over, and sure enough, there will be in a book that I've just grabbed off of the shelf or that's laying there. I'll just pick it up and open it up, and exactly what I needed will be in there. It's like when Patanjali said, dormant forces come alive, and you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be. What happens is that when you get yourself into that spirit and you allow it to flow through you and to work with you and to work for you and support you, it's taking you where you were destined to go.
Henry David Thoreau was Harvard educated, but chose the unpopular career of writer and poet to satisfy his soul's urge. A force in the New England Transcendentalists, along with Emerson, he loved nature, freedom, and individuality. Listen to this passage from Walden. If a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music which he hears, however measured and far away. The one comment that I am most pleased to hear from those who have read my books or listened to my tapes over the years goes like this. Your words finally reassured me that I am not insane. All my life people have been telling me there's something wrong with me for the way I think. Your words made me realize that I'm not crazy. I think that it was in reading Thoreau that I had the very same kind of epiphany. I have often imagined myself in the shoes of Thoreau, living simply and deliberately in the woods, being self-sufficient and writing down what I felt most deeply in my soul. But more than writing it down, the idea of living these ideas, regardless of how others perceived me or reacted, seemed somehow noble. Within each of us there is a voice that whispers, take the risks, pursue your dreams, live life to the fullest. As long as you're not hurting anyone else, why not? Then outside of us there are voices that scream, don't be a fool, you're going to fail. Be just like everyone else. If you do what you want, you're being selfish and you're hurting others. These loud, incessant dictates of our companions urge us to keep up with them and threaten to ostracize us when we fail to do so. I have observed that society in general always seems to honor its living conformists and its dead troublemakers. Everyone who has ever made a difference in any profession has listened to the music he or she hears and proceeded independent of the opinion of others. In doing so, they are labeled troublemakers, incorrigibles, even misfits. Yet they become highly respectable after death. This includes Henry David Thoreau, who was vilified for his position in his essay on the necessity of civil disobedience, and jailed for refusing to obey what he considered absurd rulings. Yet today he is required reading in virtually all high schools and universities. The beat that you hear within yourself is your connection to your soul's purpose. It will continue to plague you when you ignore it or suppress it in an attempt to conform with society. Those who implore you to march to the beat they hear are often well-intentioned and coming from a position of love for you. They'll tell you, I only have your very best interest in mind, and I am the voice of experience. You'll be sorry if you don't follow my advice. You listen and you try so hard to be just like everybody wants you to be. Yet that nagging drumbeat that no one else seems to hear faintly thumps in the farthest reaches of your awareness. If you continue to ignore it, you will live a life of frustration. You may even learn to suffer in comfort, which is the very best you'll be able to achieve. Thoreau is speaking directly to you from the mid-19th century about your own self-sufficiency and happiness. Whatever it is that you feel compelled to be or do is the voice of your soul pleading with you to have the courage to listen and act upon the melody only you hear, as long as it does not interfere with anyone else's right to pursue their dreams. And so it is with those around you who are also hearing a drumbeat that is foreign to you. They too must be allowed to step to the music they hear, even though it may sound strident and off-key to you. If everyone marched to the very same music and no one ever strayed from that conformity, we would all still be living in caves and preparing the same old recipe. Take one whole buffalo, skin it, burn it, and devour it. Progress is the result of individuals first listening to what their hearts tell them, and then acting on those messages despite the protestations of the tribe. Imagine yourself walking through the woods with Mr. Thoreau back in the 1840s before the Civil War. His observations were based not on some philosophy he had read or heard, but from his own direct experience of feeling the outrage of conformity and seeing the horrors of how Native Americans were being treated by the white man. He knew that to go along with the popular idea of removing Indians from their lands was our very own Holocaust. And so he left to live in nature and experience self-sufficiency away from the pressures of the larger group. He did not keep step with his companions, and at the time he was criticized for it. Yet time has revealed him to be one of those troublemakers we revere. Walk with Thoreau in your own mind. Listen to the voice you hear and the drumbeat only you can feel, and honor it, while honoring it in those you love as well. It is the ultimate act of unconditional love. While it may not get you any awards while you are alive, you can take comfort in knowing that you fulfilled your own divine purpose and encouraged others to do the same. To put Thoreau's advice into practice, first, refuse to evaluate yourself as sane or insane on the basis of how you fit in with the expectations of those around you. If you feel it and it harms no one, then it is authentic and very sane. Second, remind yourself that you will have to incur the misunderstanding and perhaps even the wrath of those in your immediate tribes for having the temerity to march to your own drumbeat. Don't take it personally, even for one moment. It is merely a strategy to get you to conform, and when you fail to react, the wrath will quickly disappear. Third, allow those in your immediate sphere, family and friends, to have the joy of blissfully marching to their own beat without having to explain or defend their choices. You will be substituting anger and resentment for peace and love, and everyone will enjoy the original music they hear. English poet and dramatist of the Elizabethan and early Jacobean period, William Shakespeare is the most widely known author in all of English literature. To read William Shakespeare is to become lost in his unprecedentedly rich and inventive use of the English language. I decided to present this selection on the quality of mercy from The Merchant of Venice because I feel these are the most profound and practical 14 lines ever written on this human attribute. The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His scepter shows the force of temporal power, the attribute to awe and majesty, wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above this sceptered sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute to God himself. And earthly power doth then show like as God's, when mercy seasons justice. Living with a spirit of mercy and putting it to use each day is the way to tame our more base and primitive instincts while nurturing love and compassion. When we are hurt by others, our first impulse is usually to get even. Revenge, rather than mercy, is what our more savage side urges. Yet Shakespeare defines this quality of mercy, which he equates as an attribute of God. As it droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath, it is twice blessed. The first blessing of mercy or compassion is on you, the giver. This message summarizes much of the wisdom that the psychological literature has to offer. That is, be compassionate with yourself. Do not judge yourself harshly when you make a mistake or fail to live up to some standard. Be of such a mind that you can detach from the misconduct or failure and be gentle and loving with yourself. Forgive yourself for being so human as to have wandered around in your darker corners and emerged embarrassed or disappointed with your behavior. Give yourself mercy. a quality that Shakespeare says becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. And so it becomes you as well. When you take the first blessing of mercy and apply it to yourself, you then open to this potential of offering this quality to him that takes. If you are unable to give yourself authentic compassion, you will never be able to give it to another, any more than you can give love to another if you do not love yourself, or give money to the poor if you have none. This notion of giving mercy away is applicable in all of your relationships, in all areas of your life. Offering compassion to those who have harmed or disappointed you is not a case for being a victim. It is instead a way of saying, I understand, I care, I forgive, but I still do not like it, and I will not tolerate being treated this way or having you think it is acceptable. The difference is not needing to exact revenge or to prove one's superiority. With mercy in your heart, you will find yourself much less distracted and disheartened by the evil behaviors that you see and read about almost every day. You will be able to send the offenders love and not become obsessed with anger, hatred, and eventually the desire for revenge. Put the ideas of this passage by one of the world's greatest wordsmiths into your life by practicing the following. 1. Give yourself the compassion you deserve for any and all past actions. Stop judging yourself so harshly. All of those errors and wrong actions were necessary for you to get beyond that place in your life. Be kind to yourself and eliminate any ill feelings you harbor toward yourself. 2. Once you have stated how you feel and justice has been seen, then let go. Let go now. Don't hold on to grudges and use constant reminders to keep others in a state of guilt while maintaining your own dissonance as well. Let it go. And 3. Turn your most troublesome disturbances over to God. Simply say, Dear God, I find it so extremely difficult to give mercy in this situation, and I'm turning it over to you completely. I know you will guide me in acting in the most merciful and humane way. This action will free you from your own immobilization and anger and help you to see the saint in the sinner who have just been exchanging notes with each other. Pythagoras once wrote, Learn to be silent. Let your quiet mind listen and absorb. And during the 1600s, Blaise Pascal wrote these words, All man's miseries derive from not being able to sit quietly in a room, alone. This is the only piece in this collection of great contributors in which I have elected to highlight 2 writers on the same subject. I've selected 2 men whose lives were separated by over 2 millennia, both of whom in their own times were considered to be the most knowledgeable in the rational fields of mathematics and science. Pythagoras, whose writings influenced the thought of Plato and Aristotle, was a major contributor to the development of both mathematics and Western rational philosophy. Blaise Pascal, a famous French mathematician, physicist, and religious philosopher who lived 22 centuries after Pythagoras, is considered to be one of the original scientific minds. He is responsible for inventing the syringe, the hydraulic press, and the first digital calculator. Keeping in mind the left-brain scientific leanings of these 2 scientists, listen again to their 2 quotes. Pascal, all man's miseries derive from not being able to sit quietly in a room, alone. Pythagoras, learn to be silent. Let your quiet mind listen and absorb. They both speak to the importance of silence and the value of meditation in your life, whether you are an accountant or an avatar. They send us a valuable message about a way of being in life that is not popularly encouraged in our culture. This is that there is tremendous value in creating alone time in your life that is spent in silence. If you want to shed your miseries, learn to silently sit in a room alone and meditate. It has been estimated that the average person has 60,000 separate thoughts each and every day. The problem with this is that we have the same 60,000 thoughts today that we had yesterday, and will repeat them again tomorrow. Learning to be quiet and meditate involves figuring out a way to enter the spaces between your thoughts, or the gap, as I call it. In this silent, empty space between your thoughts, you can find a sense of total peace in a realm that is ordinarily unknowable. Here, any illusion of your separateness is shattered. Most of us have minds that race full speed day and night. Our thoughts are a hodgepodge of continuous dialogue about schedules, money worries, sexual fantasies, grocery lists, drapery problems, concerns about the children, vacation plans, and on like a merry-go-round that never stops. Those 60,000 thoughts are usually about ordinary daily activities and create a mental pattern which leaves no space for silence. This pattern reinforces our cultural belief that all gaps in conversation need to be filled quickly. For many, silence represents an embarrassment and a social defect. Therefore, we learn to jump in to fill these spaces, regardless of whether our filler has any substance or not. Silent periods in a car or at a dinner are perceived as awkward moments, and good conversationalists know how to get those spaces occupied with some kind of noise. And so it is with ourselves as well. We have no training in silence, and we see it as unwieldy and confusing. Thus we keep the inner dialogue going just like the outer. Yet it is in that silent place where our ancient teacher Pythagoras tells us to let our quiet mind listen and absorb, that confusion will disappear and enlightened guidance will come to us. But meditation also affects the quality of our non-silent activities. The daily practice of meditation is the one single thing in my life that gives me a greater sense of well-being, increased energy, higher productivity, at a more conscious level, more satisfying relationships, and a closer connection to God. The mind is like a pond. On the surface you see all of the disturbances, yet the surface is only a fraction of the pond. It is in the depth below the surface, where there is stillness, that you will come to know the true essence of the pond, as well as your own mind. By going below the surface, you come to the spaces between your thoughts, where you are able to enter the gap. The gap is total emptiness, or silence. These two pioneering scientists, who are still quoted today in university courses, were studying the nature of the universe. They struggled with the mysteries of energy and pressure and mathematics and space and time and universal truth. Their message to all of us here is quite simple. If you want to understand the universe, or your own personal universe, then be quiet and face your fear of sitting in a room alone and going deep within the layers of your own mind. It is the space between the notes that makes the music. Without that emptiness, that silence in between, there is no music, only a noise. You too are silent, empty space at your center, surrounded by form. To break through that form and discover your very creative nature that is in the center, you must take the time to become silent each day and enter that rapturous space between your thoughts. No amount of my talking about the value of daily meditation will ever convince you. You will never know the value of this practice unless you make the commitment to do it.
And what I'd like to do now is share with you what I think of as the essence of getting out of our personal history. You know, Alan Watts described it like this. He said, your life is like a boat, and it's heading up the river at 40 knots. And you're standing on the stern of the boat, looking down as the boat's heading in this direction, and you're looking at the water, and what you see before you is a wake. And he said, you have to ask yourself these three questions about the wake. The first question, what is the wake? And the wake that you're observing is just a trail that is left behind. That's what it is. It's just a trail that is left behind, if you can see that metaphor. And that's your life. And everything that's ever happened to you up until this moment, it's a wake. And the second thing is, what's driving the boat? That's the second question. That is, what's making your life go in this direction? And the answer to what's driving the boat is the present moment energy that's being generated by the engine. And nothing more. That's the only thing that makes the boat go. Now here's the most important question to ask yourself. Is it possible for the wake to drive the boat? That is, can a trail that is left behind make a boat go in this direction? And of course the answer to that is, it's impossible. Can't happen. And most of us, including those of us who are stuck in disease, are believing that the wake is what's causing me to be sick today, or causing this relationship to not work. And this woman, whose husband had left her, and who had to raise these children and had lived with all of these thoughts of how this shouldn't have happened and what a bastard he was and how wrong that was and so on, was living back here in the wake, believing that all of this stuff that was back here was causing her to be depressed, to be sick, to be unhappy, to be all of the things that she was, when in fact it's just the way that she was processing that. It's the present moment energy that is generated by our thoughts that creates what it is that we are experiencing now. And if you can get out of the wake, or if you can teach your patients to get out of the wake, how many patients had come to you and told you that I've had back trouble my whole life? It runs in our family. My grandfather had it, my great-grandfather had it, my grandmother, of course I'm going to have it. And they're all in the wake. And they're all anticipating and expecting, and they're literally living this stuff that's back here, when in fact, they have a whole new set of options available to them if you can move into the present moment, if you can move into the now, and redirect the energy that you have into this moment. This is the place where you have an awareness within you that says, I don't go back there any longer. What you think of me is none of my business. I am free from allowing myself to become immobilized or upset or in any way incapacitated on the basis of what is going on outside of me or how other people conduct themselves. I am in charge of my emotional life. I live at bliss.
My feelings come from my thoughts. My emotions, my angers, my hatreds, my love, my positive emotions, my negative emotions are all preceded by thoughts. They're the result of thoughts. They're the physiological reactions to thoughts. And emotions, which are very vital and very important to each one of us, can in fact be controlled by our thoughts in positive ways. I'm not an anti-emotion person. I'm not someone who believes that you shouldn't be emotional. I'm saying your emotions should never be immobilizing. They should never be defended as something that you use to keep yourself from being all that you can be, or explaining it all away because I'm just this kind of person. I've always been this way. I can't help it. That's my nature. That's the kind of person I am. You are the kind of person you have chosen to be as a result of how you use what you are, the pureness of your thought. We're learning through biochemical exploration and engineering. There are enzymes in the brain that release different endorphins into your brain as a result of the way that you think. A person who thinks a positive thought is not just saying, oh goody, I'm just thinking positive thoughts. They are affecting the chemistry of their body. And when you look at things like schizophrenia and some of the least understood of the mental illnesses, we say, yes, there's chemical imbalances there. And the scientists all get together and say, yeah, it's chemistry. What are you talking about all this thinking stuff? If we can alter the chemistry, we can alter the disease. Of course, it's true. I buy it 100%, but it's only 50% of the battle. What causes the chemistry to change in a human being? What causes an ulcer? Isn't that a chemical change brought about as a result of thinking? Isn't that what it is? Well, the same thing is true of a mental illness. Yes, the chemistry is different, but believe that you control your chemistry. It's your chemistry. You carry it around. It's yours. And every patient who I've ever worked with in the really severely disturbed realm still must understand that they're doing this to themselves. Yes, your chemistry is unbalanced, but don't believe that we're just going to put you on lithium, or we're just going to put you on this drug, and the drug is going to, for the rest of your life, do it. You've got to believe that you can, in fact, alter any chemistry within you through the way that you think. What do you think blood pressure going up when you're under pressure is about? It's a chemical change brought about through thought.